if you can understand, hey, I'm putting this pole in the middle of a salt flat, and nothing else exists around here. This is what the shadow would do. If you can find that, you can find everything else. You see what I mean? It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if it's going up a staircase or, if you can imagine that staircase isn't there, find it on the flat ground plane, it'll figure itself out almost. And I can show you, be showing you such things next week. Okay? So the real point is, when you're working with shadows, here's another thing. As the objects get more complicated, people start going, and they kind of panic. All right? You don't panic. Basically, find one point. If there's a secret to doing shadows, it's this. Play connect the dots. Find one dot, find dot number 2, connect dot 1 to dot number 2. You're done. And sometimes it's a little bit laborious if you've got something really complicated happening, but it always comes down to, okay, find the shadow at this point, find the shadow at this point, okay, connect them, okay, connect them to this next one, okay, you've got the shadow. So let me kind of show you how that would work. Actually, you guys, let me do this. Let me show you another one as an example. So let's say we have another object. Here. What I would do if I were drawing this is I would go like this. Okay. I'd note where it hit the wall. Draw a guideline straight up. Well, straight up.
Bless you.
That's it. Now, just to mess with your head, if this were a wall, that's it. It's not hard. It really isn't. You play connect the dots. And you just think of each individual section, one at a time. Alright? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about a slightly more complicated situation. Slightly. Okay? When you guys are working on a cube, this is going to mess with you a little. Well, let me just draw the cube. Never mind. Oh, and by the way, you guys, for the ellipses today as well, and for these shadows, I'm drawing fairly what I would call regular cubes, like cubes that don't have extreme differences in foreshortening. Because it makes the concept easier to communicate. It's not because I'm trying to avoid it. It's just that when you draw really extreme cubes, say where one side's really foreshortened, it makes it harder to communicate the ideas. So let's say you have a cube here, and you have a wall, and let's say they're at different angles even. So these guys aren't quite going to the same VPs. They're slightly askew, which often happens. A table, these tables aren't squared up with the wall. I could almost guarantee it. They're close. So let's say you had a cube like this. Now let's say we had a light source. And I'm deliberately doing this to cast a shadow on the wall, just so you guys know. Okay? So here's how I would go about doing it. You are no longer actually drawing... I don't want you to think in terms of drawing the shadow of a cube. What do I want you to do? I want you to think in terms of casting the shadow of 4 Delilahs who happen to be standing 1 Delilah apart from each other. Okay? Does that make sense? It's kind of some strange ritual they have. They always stand 1 Delilah apart. Okay. They're very militaristic. Okay. So look at Delilah number 1. Here's Delilah number 1. Oh, and by the way, this is the light source. This is the radiation point. So here's Delilah number 1. Delilah number 1. Okay, there's the direction of the shadow. Eyes up. Keep your eyes up for a sec. You can take notes in a second. And there's the shadow of Delilah number 1. Okay? So, okay. Now you can also know this. This is a little trick, so watch what I'm doing here. Don't worry about taking notes again. You can see that if I did this for the other ones, I would get lines like that. You see what I mean? They're radiating. Make sense? Okay. From the radiation. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now here's the thing. Do you see that I could do this the same way? And I could go like this, I could go like this, and I'd find certain points. Right? Like in this case, let me do this a little more precisely. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I could say, well, this is the shadow of Delilah number 2. But there's actually a trick. See this line here? This line is going to a vanishing point. That line's going to the same point. So if you have a line going to a VP, the shadow of that line will go to the same VP. Make sense? All right, now, let's say the wall wasn't there. Do you see that this would be the shadow edge? And that this, the shadow would look like that? But we do have a wall there. So what do? We go like this. Everyone eyes up. You mark where it hits the wall. You draw a line straight up until you hit, that original line. And so that's the shadow of Delilah number 2 on the wall if the cube didn't exist. So what do?